What's up, guys? Dave with Miracle Canine Training. So right now we have Athena and Athena's sister Tess, who are here all the way from Chicago. And Athena and Tess have been getting in some gnarly scrapes with each other at home. So we are going to show the process of putting them back together today. So since their last fight, which I believe was like November, if I'm not mistaken, they have not been together at all, right? They really kind of chewed each other up pretty good. You know, it was a pretty gnarly fight for the owner. So this is gonna be the very first time they've seen each other in months. They've seen each other in passing, walking by their crates and stuff, but they have not actually interacted with each other. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what we get here. Take my Topo Chico. This video is brought to you by Topo Chico Seltzer. So first thing we're gonna do here is take them outside. We have Athena out here. She's on one of the sides behind a fence, and we're just gonna take them out and allow them to kind of interact and sniff through the fence for a little bit here. And first and foremost, we just want to see, is there any sort of nonsense we need to be aware of? Do they have any sort of, you know, seeing each other through the gate issues, jumping, reactivity, stuff like that? And this is the very first step. And generally we do this with any dogs the first time we kind of introduce them, regardless of, you know, if it's been good, bad, or in between. So obviously sniffing a little bit, see what we get. We do have both of them on e-collars here in case there is any issue. You see the hair kind of coming up on Athena a little bit. She's obviously very uncertain, which is normal. And so far, we don't exactly know who the culprit is as far as the fights are concerned. Our initial observations of Tess is actually pretty social. She hasn't really posed to be much of a problem with other dogs. But Tess was the one that was originally brought here by the owner as the quote-unquote problem child. And a lot of times what we'll see is that owners mistakenly send the wrong dog to training because not because that dog is the one that's initiating or starting the fights, but once the fight happens, that dog is the one that ultimately does the most damage, right? And especially when there's an older dog in the house, like Athena here obviously is the older of the two. She's had her longer. She's a little bit of kind of a mama's girl, if you will. We could look past some of the problems that have been contributing to things. So upon intake of Athena, the owner kind of explained to me that Athena tends to play police officer a little bit with the other dogs. She'll hunker up next to the owner, and then if the other dogs come into her space, she'll growl, react, stuff like that. And she never saw it as an issue because, one, a lot of times we think dogs, you know, it's normal for them to squabble a little bit, if you will. And then the other side of it is all of the other dogs used to back down to it, no problem, right? So it's like, all right, well, she sets her boundaries. You know, the other dogs back down to it, so no big deal. Unfortunately, as Tess got older and it repeatedly happened to her, Tess started to retaliate, which again can create problems. Now, things are never one-sided, so I'm not saying it's totally not Tess's fault and totally Athena's fault. Tess has her own issues. She tends to, there's other dogs in the house. She tends to really get sucked into the arousal of what the other dogs are doing. So she mentioned when the other dogs react to the fence line, Tess will kind of try to jump in and, you know, ultimately start little squabbles and stuff like that. So those are going to be things that we want to work on, not just with Tess, but with the other dogs when we go to do the send home process. And, you know, this is a lot of the first initial things we like to do. So again, this is a lot of what we're seeing is first and foremost, allowing that interaction to happen. You could tell Tess was pretty neutral to it. Athena, on the other hand, was very, very unsure, didn't really know what was going on, stuff like that. But you see now they're kind of going off, doing their own thing. So we'll actually do the introduction in a minute here. And when we do the introduction, obviously we'll put muzzles on them to kind of assess what's going to happen. Athena was really, really anxious too when she first got here. Which definitely plays a big time contributing factor. You know, I always say, like, dogs really want to try to control unstable behavior or unstable states of mind. So if Athena is constantly in a state of being anxious in the house, that's going to drive Tess crazy. And if we're not doing anything to solve that anxiety or solve the things she does when she's anxious, eventually Tess is going to be the one to try to control that. And we always say dog fights generally come from either resources, right? Food, toys, affection, which I'm sure there's a degree of that going on between the dogs, but also they come from one dog disciplining the other for things we should be disciplining them for, which is likely a lot of the behaviors she shows when she gets anxious. So, all right, let's go ahead and we'll muzzle them up here. We'll see what we get. So we got one muzzled up here. We got the other just about muzzled up, and we'll kind of see what we get here. Good. Is that pretty snug?
That's pretty snug.
All right. So now that we have the muzzle, you could hang out there for a minute.
Okay.
Now that we have the muzzles on, we'll just give them one more second here, obviously, to see if there's any other nonsense. You see she's a little bit kind of fired up, if you will, right? Very, very alert, and that could be from her wanting to go over and control what Tess is doing, or her anticipating Tess going after her, which we'll see sometimes, and almost wanting to kind of one-up things and jump the gun on it. Now, when I open this gate, one really, really important thing to do is to allow whatever's going to happen for a minute. Whether it looks like they're going to get into a fight, get into a scrap with each other, whatever it may be, it's my job to step back for a minute, know we have safety protocols in place right now, and just let it play out for a minute before I do anything. So that's what we're going to do here now. Paige, you could go ahead and walk in. Now, gate's open. She just sat there, obviously. Totally fine, right? A lot of people will make the mistake of, at this point, trying to coax the dog in or whatever. Once that barrier goes away, let the dogs do whatever they're going to do, whether that's just sit there, whether that's come over, whatever it may be. And we're just going to watch now. There we go. And you see the assertiveness that she's displaying. See Tess showing avoidance, which is actually a very good sign. Now it's our job as we're doing this to make sure we're not adding anything that's going to confuse the dogs or create a problem. So we're not petting the dogs, we're not talking to them, we're not doing anything like that. We're just letting this kind of happen. A lot of times when dogs have been separated for this long, there's just a ton of kind of pent up feelings, good, bad, or in between. So the first few times is gonna be very weird for them. Like, what the heck is going on? Around this dog again? Is she gonna do something? Is she gonna do something? Why do I have this thing on my face? So we gotta let this become normal again. That's right. The stare down, man. Ridiculous. All right, let's go ahead and we'll just walk back in and see if they follow us or not.
Okay.
Create a little motion.
She's out.
There we go, so she's coming too. You can come in, Paige. So that's where we're at. So we did about 45 minutes of having them together. We shifted environments. So we went outside, inside, super anticlimactic, but you see all the tension at the beginning. That is the icebreaker moment where if you try to intervene and jump in, you could create a problem. We want those dogs to do exactly what they did, which is they sized each other up, felt each other out, were very apprehensive initially, and then because there was no human intervention that caused any sort of conflict or confusion, they ultimately just went their own ways, laid down, relaxed, chilled for a while, and we're starting to pattern in that behavior. So that's exactly what we want to see at first one. We don't want fireworks. We don't want these dogs getting in massive fights. We don't expect for them to be playing or super happy or any of that kind of stuff. We just want for them to realize we're back together with each other. Okay, this is a little weird. Is something about to happen? Then realize, okay, nothing bad is happening. We could go our separate ways. We could relax. We could be in the same room with each other without needing to interact and be happy with that. A lot of people try to force the envelope past that point. They create problems. They make things 10 times worse than it does. It's like the age-old saying, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's the same exact thing with dogs. If you guys can't get along with each other, go do something else. Give each other space. That is always an option, and we're patterning in that as an option that we want them to resort to. So we'll continue to keep you guys posted through the process with this. We're also actually going to be taking these dogs home and doing an in-home send-home lesson for 2 days in Chicago with them. There's a high probability that we're probably going to film some of that, and hopefully you guys can see the process of reintegrating fighting dogs, because you wouldn't believe how many phone calls I get about that kind of stuff, especially over the last couple months. We've been getting a lot of calls about it, a lot of virtual sessions I've been doing with it. So that's what the beginning looks like. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let us know below.